They provide very clear guidance to us that we need to present unbiased curricular materials, that we have a responsibility as educators to present information to students in a non-biased, non-partisan way, and that we really connect with students to allow them to operate in an informed way through the curriculum, and that we as educators are not activists.
The education landscape is constantly evolving. Staying ahead of the trends is essential. Welcome to Ed Buzz LA County, where we explore groundbreaking initiatives, inspiring stories, and innovative practices shaping the future of learning here in Southern California. Today, we're taking a closer look at a California state requirement that all high schools offer at least one ethnic studies course, starting with the 2025-2026 school year. By incorporating ethnic studies into the standard curriculum, Assembly Bill 101 aims to provide students with a broader perspective on the social, cultural, and historical makeup of California and the United States. I'm Elizabeth Graswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education, and I'm joined now by Elaina Garza, History Social Science Coordinator 3 and the Division of Curriculum and Instructional Services. Welcome and glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
So let's just start out with some basic understanding. What is ethnic studies and what is the new law?
So let's start with the new law. So AB 101 establishes a graduation requirement for all students in the class of 2030 to take at least one ethnic studies course in California in order to be able to graduate. But beginning in 2025, all schools must offer at least one course as we begin the pathway for students to meet that graduation requirement.
Great. And so in ethnic studies itself?
So ethnic studies is a broad field. So it's both a multi and interdisciplinary field. So what that means is that students can explore themes of ethnic studies in one course, like a history course, or they can examine it through multiple fields like music, history, art, literature. And what that is it's when we take themes of identity, history, movement, social equity, and justice, and we examine both ourselves and our surrounding societies to develop a counter-narrative or an alternative understanding of what we've traditionally been taught.
And it's really important, but why is it important?
So that's a great question. So, what we've found and what research out of Stanford University has found is that when students feel a greater sense of connection to what they're learning, to their community, that it actually improves student outcomes. So there's a lot of research to show that when students take an ethnic studies course, we see an increase in GPA, we see an increase in positive academic outcomes for our students, we see a greater enhancement in critical thinking, in understandings of how they can contribute to their school, to their community, to themselves and their families. There's a wide breadth of research to support that.
Well, we're so diverse in LA County and in California. It just seems so important.
Yeah, and one of the markers of ethnic studies is that the course that's offered should really reflect the community, so that all of those courses are going to look different in different high schools, in different districts across the county. So as you can imagine, we have a wide breadth of courses that are being offered currently.
I actually didn't know that. That's really interesting. I have heard that there are some people that are concerned about it. Can you tell us how you address those concerns?
So I think it's important that we look at what the law says and what the ethnic studies model curriculum say. And both of those are very clear. They provide very clear guidance to us that we need to present unbiased curricular materials, that we have a responsibility as educators to present information to students in a non-biased, non-partisan way, and that we really connect with students to allow them to operate in an informed way through the curriculum, and that we as educators are not activists.
That's great to hear. AB 101 mandates ethnic studies as a high school graduation requirement, but ethnic studies themes can be introduced to students beginning in early grades. We spoke to some experts who say it's a good idea to expose younger students to this topic. We're going to now take a look, and we also need to give kudos to Dr. Michelle Herzog, who was a leader in this work, who you'll see in a few minutes.
Well, young students are naturally curious. And so I think it's very important that we as teachers cultivate that curiosity. And what better way to do that than to look at people that are different from ourselves, as Keith mentioned, but also it provides students an opportunity to see themselves and feel a connection to the school. There's no reason not to include it.
I think one of the things we want to do in teaching that is to help students understand the wide range of ways that people can do things for others. Of course, they know how to be nice to their classmates, but we want them to think about all the other ways people do things for others, whether it's by making good consumer choices that are good for producers, or doing things that directly aid people in need, or even engaging in protests. All of these are ways of doing things for other people. And we also want them to think about what things can they do now as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and what kinds of things will they be doing when they're older, when they're teenagers, when they're adults. So it provides a focus, but it also expands their understanding of what it means to do things for other people.
Can you discuss other ways or strategies that teachers can use to have conversations with younger students?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, when we look at the key themes of ethnic studies, we begin with an exploration of identity. And I think with our younger students, especially understanding who we are and all the different components of what makes us who we are helps to contribute to that greater understanding as we build out ethnic studies throughout the curriculum.
What are different ways in which schools, districts can implement ethnic studies courses?
So the wonderful thing about ethnic studies is that it really should reflect the community that the school resides in. So we see schools and districts offering ethnic studies in a host of different ways. We have a district that's offering a film through ethnic studies course. We have districts that are offering ethnic studies in math. We have districts that are offering a course that's simply a one semester exploration of identity. So really the course has a wide range of of opportunities, and the sky is really the limit for what our districts can offer.
And how do they actually implement them in the schools?
So there's a process that we follow that was outlined in the ethnic studies model curriculum. So districts should be coming together, school boards should be offering a board resolution that will set the tone for what ethnic studies would look like in a district. And then there's a process to gather a committee that is a representation of the community as a whole. And then that committee comes together to make recommendations on what the course should look like.
So it's very much an inclusive process.
Yes, absolutely. And we do want to make sure that as we're going through that process, that we're transparent, that everybody has an opportunity to comment. In fact, before courses are approved, they do need to go before school boards twice so that the community has an opportunity to review resources, materials, and provide their input before these courses are put into place in schools.
What I love about that is you're not only like teaching the students about it, but it's actually an opportunity to teach the community about, their own culture and the different cultures represented.
Yeah, and it also provides us an opportunity for reflection. So I like to say to teachers and to districts that this isn't a one and done process, that really your ethnic studies course should be reviewed and revised to make sure that as our communities change, that our courses continue to meet the needs of our students.
That's awesome. There are different strategies that teachers can use to teach students about identifying implicit bias. Let's take a look at one of them.
I learned very early on as a teacher that curiosity is probably the single quality that students bring to the classroom automatically. What I learned also is that students weren't always curious about the things that I wanted them to be curious about.
Exactly.
But there were certain themes and certain topics that always aroused their curiosity. Issues of fairness and justice, of equity, of systems of power. Students always had questions about, why did that happen? How did that happen to those people? That wasn't fair to them. What did they do about it? And those kinds of questions that came out, I learned very quickly that by weaving those kinds of themes throughout my instruction and throughout my curriculum really helped elicit those kinds of responses from the students. They want to know the answers to those. They want to explore that. And that's why inquiry is so important. Of all the instructional shifts, it's the one that is probably the most natural for our students.
What are your thoughts on what we just heard?
I mean, I absolutely agree. Anybody who's ever been a parent knows that children are naturally inquisitive and they have a fundamental need for fairness. And by exploring that and pushing our students to really explore the questions they have about history or about a piece of literature, it really draws them in, and that's how we can expand their critical thinking. And that's why we see when students are engaged in the work of ethnic studies that we do have such positive outcomes, because they're able to push their own thinking and the thinking of their fellow classmates, and by turn their teachers.
What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that districts are facing in implementing this requirement?
I think some of the challenges are looking at how we can continue to expand the program. So as we go from needing to offer one course to needing to offer, the potential of multiple courses that will meet the number of students that are going to need to take the course, schools are looking at different avenues that they might explore to ensure that they have that breadth of course to meet the needs of the students.
And how can teachers learn more about ethnic studies?
So we are fortunate in LACOE that, as you mentioned, Dr. Herzog did a breadth of work to help prepare our county. A lot of those materials are archived on our website, on the History Social Science website. They can continue to check in on our website as well to look for training opportunities that are coming up in the near future.
As well as our YouTube page. How are parents and community members involved in the development of the curriculum?
That's a great question. So as we develop courses, there are multiple opportunities for parents and community leaders to be involved. We do have committees that come together within districts to make recommendations on what a course should look like. And then after a course has been developed, but before it's put into the schools, these courses go before school boards for review. So parents and community members have the opportunity to review materials, to review the course selection, and to provide comment on input on any changes that they want to see.
I want to thank Elaina Garza for telling us more about California's ethnic studies requirement and the different ways to implement them. Remember, we have a ton of resources on this topic on our website. Visit lacoe.edu for more information. I'm Elizabeth Grasswich. I'll see you next time on EdBuzz.